it just depends if you decide to take the call and live in your truth and live in your greatness. I think that, and it's like you said, it's the hardest decision that you could ever make, but it also is the most rewarding and fulfilling decision that you could ever make.
Welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee with your host, Rick Alexander. Thanks for tuning in. This week we're doing a series called Lessons from the Trails Less Traveled. But today we're actually taking a break from doing that, the short form episodes, the 5-part series that I was doing there, 4-part series. And we're going to do a long form interview because Danielle McGinnis and I just developed a course called The Art of Coaching. And I think it was only a matter of time before you and I kind of came together and developed something. And as we were talking, one of the things we figured out is that both of us have a really, really extensive background in coaching, and it's how both of us make our living right now. And I mean, you have a master's in coaching, for God's sakes. I coached at the highest level you could possibly coach at in the Navy. I had my master training specialist. I worked as a BUDS instructor for 4 years. So literally anybody that wanted to be special forces in the Navy had to go through a program that I was the head coach of. And so you and I just have such an extensive knowledge base on coaching. And right now, there are so many people that have learned something about themselves, whether that's in strength and conditioning or personal development or emotional healing. Like, there are so many people that have gone through such hardships, and they are eager to share that message with the world. And honestly, there's never been a better time because there's such a low barrier to entry right now to share your message with people. But people are looking at coaching, the whole coaching model, the online coaching model. It seems enticing, but it's like, where do you even fit in? Or where do you start to develop something for people? Which is why you and I decided to build this course. But before I get in any further, I should probably just say thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
For you guys that have been listening for a while, it was like we've been dating for 3 months now, which we established right before the show because I forgot. And well, it's not even important to us, right? Like,
no,
nobody. I don't care. Like, that was one of the things we talked about pretty early on. It's like, I'm not gonna lie, like the birthday thing, and I mean, it's all gonna happen. Like, we just remember these things about each other
next week.
Yeah, okay. But you and I don't like. I mean, what's your favorite color? I don't really care. What's mine?
Green.
Damn. What's yours? Pink. No, sparkles. Does
Yes.
that count? Okay, perfect.
Sparkles, rainbows.
We're just not concerned with that stuff because when you and I are talking, like, our conversations are like always about like our clients and how do we change the world? And there are so many people that have such an incredible message to offer, but as they look at the coaching model, it just doesn't work for everybody, to be quite honest. And they're like, where do I fit in? And so we developed this course basically talking about all of the things that you and I know to be true about building a coaching model. And I've been full-time as a coach. Of course I did it in the Navy. I was a personal trainer before the military, but I've been full-time now with my coaching business with the Clarity Academy and the performance coaching that I do for 10 months. And I built that into a 6-figure business. And that's actually important, not because of the metric of the money. It's actually important because I never thought I was somebody that could do that. And that's super important to know. Excuse me. And so I think what we have is such a, well, and then when we talk about the way that you coach, it's like you're such a person first, empathy focused or driven coach. Like you're always, I don't know, how would you describe your coaching philosophy?
I would say that it's definitely client centric. So before we even get down to what their goals are, I want to get to know them at the personal level before we even go into that, because I want to establish a level of rapport with somebody, because you can't coach somebody if they're not going to open up to you about what their goals are. And I think the best way to guide someone towards success is to really understand how their value system works, how their personality works, and go from there. And I think the best way to establish that is meeting them at a personal level with rapport and basically meeting them where they are. And that's easier said than done. So many people are like, how do you do that? And I think that kind of brings up the question that you and I talked about do you have to be an in-person coach before you're an online coach?
Right.
So you can answer that question
Oh,
first.
you son of a bitch. I was going to ask you that question. I'm going to be honest. I do believe... So before I answer that, what I'd love the audience to know right now is we're going to have a really candid conversation about what it means to be a coach today. And we're going to do that through the lens of your journey and my journey. And we'll just talk about our philosophies and the things that we've learned along the way. Now, why that's important is because it actually doesn't matter if you're a coach or a client. Like if you're listening to this, there's so much that you can take away from, that you'll be able to take away from this experience. You know, there was something, I tell this in the Clarity Academy, there was a reason that I started the Clarity Academy, or actually, if I rewind it even a couple years before the Clarity Academy, the work that I had done with a coach, that emotional work, that personal development work, the reason that I had done that in the first place is because I was like at a point where I felt like I wasn't getting the results I wanted in my own business. And I felt like I could always get somewhere, and then it seemed to be that I didn't feel like self-sabotage, but it's certainly what it looked like from the outside. Like I would get somewhere, and then I was like, there seemed to be a really big ceiling on my success. And I'm sure people listening to this episode can understand where I'm coming from, because there's a lot of people that want to get somewhere in life and just feel like they're reliving almost the same patterns. Maybe they're like dating the same kinds of people, working the same kinds of jobs, and they're in these like, there's cyclic patterns, and it feels like fate. Well, it's not fate. It's your own ability to figure out what's going on with you and work through the things that are holding you back. But my personal story with that is I had finally decided, I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. I got to get a coach. And I called a girl, and I did a coaching call with her. I think I paid like $300 for an hour or something, $250 for the hour with this girl. And it was great. She gave me a ton of information, ton of things to think about. And at the end of the call, she was like, do you want to work with me going forward? And I was like talking to her about it, and I was super interested because I really was at the point where I wasn't getting the results I wanted. And she was like, it's $750 a month. And I was like, instantly, because I didn't have a good relationship with money at the time, I was like, I cannot pay that. Like, that's insane to me. And she asked me a question. She said, well, let me ask you this. If you could get exactly where you wanted to 1 year from now, everything was going to be how you wanted. You'd make the amount of money you wanted. Your business would be where it was, but you had to pay $700 a month to get there. Would you pay it? And I thought about it, and it's like, no brainer. Yes. Like, I want to get there. Except I didn't do it because I had such a terrible relationship with money. And then a year went by, and the notification for that call went off on my calendar, and I looked at it. And as I looked at it, I realized a year went by from that previous call, and I had made no progress. And that began to like really start to create my coaching philosophy, because then I realized, where maturity and discipline fall short. I say this all the time, add external structure. It's like, for whatever reason, my maturity, my discipline, my personal development was at a level that was getting me the life that I had. And that's really something to know for people. Like, your life is set up exactly for your level of personal development right now. It's nobody else's fault. You're not a victim of anything. Whatever you've done up until now, whatever your mindset is, whatever your approach to life is, the life that you're getting is an example of that. Now, I'm not talking about problems that come into your life that are outside of your circumstance. Like, we all have to go through hard times. But I mean, in general, like the life that you're getting is what you've built and what you're ready to handle. And so for me, I just started realizing, wow, everywhere I want to get somewhere. If I work on it for 90 days and I can't get there, that's as long as I'll spend. After that, I'm hiring a coach. And that started my entire coaching philosophy. And so for people, I like to start with that story just because I want people to understand where I'm coming from. So I actually don't care if people listening to this want to be a coach, but they should be a client. Not of me, not of you, but of somebody for sure. Why waste any amount of time not getting the results? If you've tried it yourself for 3 months, a full quarter in the business year, perhaps it's time to just, nobody cares how somebody gets sober, whether they did it with willpower or they did it with AA. What people care about is, was the result achieved? And so that's what I care about for coaching, which is why I'm so passionate and so excited about us being able to offer this course. But now, to answer your question, which I'm going to turn back on you, do people need to coach in person before they do this online thing? Because that online thing is huge right now. And it's amazing because, like, you and I have talked about this forever. Like, we're looking at a map throwing darts at it because we can live anywhere in the world because we do coach online. But that's a decade of coaching in person prior to doing the online thing.
So, my answer is yes, I feel like coaching in person, no matter what it is, whether it's training, high school coaching, whatever, if you're a teacher, that's kind of a form of coaching. I feel like any kind of like learning environment, you're coaching people to grow. So I think that you do have to have a level of interpersonal skills to be able to, like I said at the beginning, meet people where they're at and progress them forward. And in my personal journey, I think it put me leaps and bounds ahead of, I'm not going to say that I was better at anything in people in my physical therapy class, but I had worked in person as a trainer for almost 4 years and got a master's degree in coaching and athletic administration before I went back to PT school. And then some of my classmates were straight out of undergrad into physical therapy school. So my personal experience having that understanding of human dynamic and how to work with people, how to meet them at their level, was really helpful when I went into PT school and you had to coach people that weren't motivated when they were in pain. They weren't motivated when they didn't understand what they were doing. So having that in-person experience is really invaluable, and I think that just because there's a hype right now around online coaching and it's really cool, I think that you shouldn't demean the value of in-person coaching. I think it serves as a really good foundation to build your life upon. It's not an end-all be-all. Like, if you don't have access to an in-person whatever, that's not the end of the world of your coaching journey, but I think it's just a huge helpful learning experience. So
Totally. I want to take a minute to acknowledge my excellent interview skills, because you gave me a question, and I put you back in the hot seat real fast.
I know that.
Okay, so let me ask you this then, and I would love to talk about my philosophy on this too afterward, but did you find that there was trouble as you switched from the in-person model to the online model? Like, was there a learning curve for you personally? Because you built, and this is insane too, but you built an online coaching business while in PT school, which is like something I couldn't even comprehend. I mean, I don't know if I'm smart enough to get through PT school as it is. So, but to do those simultaneously is crazy. But what was that learning curve like?
So, I think there's definitely some crossover between the in-person and the online. And like I said, establishing that foundation of rapport and gathering information about your client and what their needs are is super important. And also in physical therapy school, they teach you how to subjectively interview patients. So that's really helpful too. And I kind of use that in my business. But I think that, what was the question again? Like,
what was the learning curve? Like, as you switched to online, like, did you find it difficult? Like, I mean, because they are different disciplines in ways.
I think your communication skills just have to be on point. And I think that I didn't find it super challenging because I just feel like I live my life on human connection, and I am really good at taking someone's mood or whatever they're presenting me with, their problem or whatever, and meeting them at that level. So for me personally, I didn't think it was that challenging. But if you're not good with human communication and you're not good with interpersonal skills, and if you don't have video access to the person, it depends on the mode of communication that you're using. If you're all in type, it's really hard to communicate a complex message with somebody, and that's where video and technology help the online space nowadays. But I didn't struggle that much.
Yeah. Well, and but that's perfectly said, because you are a developed empath in a way. Like, you understand, and you've done that work. For me, it was hell. Like, that learning curve for me was rough. A way to think about it for people is the difference between talk and text. Like, when you text somebody, like, you don't always get the message across. And then imagine the nuance. Like, for us, we're talking strength and conditioning, but when you get into emotional work, it's even harder, because then it's like we're talking about really deeply personal issues. And so for me, that challenge was really hard. And the thing that's gotten me over it is just being relentless in my approach, which is like why I offer so many different things. Like, I've got the Marco Polo performance program, and then I've got like I've got podcasts that I do that are private just for like the people that I coach, that are like based on the things that they're working through. Because for me, I'm like always like, what's the approach that's going to get the point across? But for me, I found it to be a really big learning curve. And the other thing that I've had to realize is that I've got to figure out how I'm going to integrate metrics into my coaching business. And so before, I didn't do a ton of heart rate training for my endurance athletes, because I actually would rather I'd rather coach an intuitive athlete personally. I'd rather coach people to be intuitive. But then I found, but if I'm relying on intuition via online, real difficult to know, because people don't have a good idea of their rate of perceived exertion. They don't know what their RPEs are, right? They have no way of figuring it out. So by cross-referencing with metrics, like from especially like the biohealth metrics, then you can start figuring out what it is that you need to do in order to get your point across. And so that's awesome. But for people that are listening to this that are considering it, that feel like maybe your communication skills aren't super on point, like you really do have to, well, one, take our course, but two, be super relentless in your approach and figuring out what model works for you. Because that's what I wanted to talk about next, which is like, in the course that we've developed that is going to be available, we're going to launch it on Friday. We have everything literally from developing a business and coaching model to developing your mindset around money, to communicating with a client, to presentation skills, to understanding your unique genius. I mean, this is a really all-encompassing course on the art of coaching. But did you find that you had to play with the model a little bit, or did you guys find as you did that, as you built that program in order to make it work for what you were trying to do? Because your guys' model and the model that you're using now, it's a little bit different than what you would get like a standard online coach from.
Well, again, coming back to, I always feel like my unique genius is being a people-centric person, and I want people to always feel like they are in control of whatever progress that they make. And so for me to give a strength and conditioning client just straight like strength balance assessment tools and completely avoid any kind of interpersonal communication would, for me, feel like there was a huge gap in the programming, and I'm not hitting on my personal unique genius, because there's certain things that you can develop as a coach and an athlete, like strengths within their personality that they don't see, that can actually enhance their performance. So if those aren't incorporated into whatever type of business model that you have, then you could be missing out on huge results just because you're focused on objective metrics.
Right. And that's a great point, and that's part of what we've developed into this course. But it was a question you asked me as we were talking through the course and how we were going to build it out, which is like, what do you think that what do you think you're not, the thing that separates you as a coach is? Like, what makes you the best coach? And for you, it's that empathy and that compassion, but also it's more than just empathy and compassion for you, because you have a dedication to the client. And that's the part that struck me just as we started dating and like looking at your workflow. It's like you're always sending your clients like messages and shit. It's like, that is like over the top. Like, just, you don't have to do that, right? But that's you're leaning into you, and you built you into the model. And that's why I think it's so important to understand what it is that you bring to the table. One of my most popular quotes on Instagram is, once you understand what you bring to the table, the last thing you'll ever have to do is ask for permission to sit at it. But you have to understand what you bring to the table so you can lean in on it and build your model around that. It's like, there's no one way that anything has to look in this life. And that's, I believe that through and through, no matter what the business is. But for me, one of the things that you and I were talking about is like, so what I would consider to be one of my like really strong points is I'm such a solution-oriented person, but I also think I don't think linearly at all. I think very laterally. I think outside of the box, and there's no solution to me that I won't consider, at least in my own mind. And so a lot of times when people present problems to me, or I'm running up against a problem, I'm pretty good at finding a solution, only because I can tear the box apart and just find whatever I think is going to work. So, but I've had to build that into my model, which is why I've offered the Marco Polo program and stuff, because I'm realizing like, oh, okay, so maybe the standard performance coaching model is we have a talk 1 hour a week, but maybe like I'm not going to be able to help you with those problems in the way that I can help you necessarily if we do it 1 hour a week. That's what I was figuring out. And so the clients that I have in this Marco Polo program are like kind of raving about it just to me right now. We've only been doing it for about a month, but it's like oh yeah, because I built that model around me specifically, and you just can't put a price on that.
Well, I also think that, as hearing you say that and then understanding how you work, but I think also like investing in yourself and getting a coach, as you spoke to earlier, is so important because you understand like what works and what does not work.
Even as a coach.
So I feel like I've always said that coaches need coaches.
Totally.
And I feel like a lot of my clients actually are coaches. And I think it's really important. I think one of the best...
Well, I have coaches.
Yeah. I think the best thing that I did this year was invest in a number of coaches. And I've found, as I've developed personally throughout the years, like I've really stuck to principles of some coaches, and I've dropped others that just really don't serve me because they don't fit with my mission and vision for what I want to do in my life. And I feel like that's the good thing about this program is we're not telling you who to be.
Yeah.
We're telling you how to develop your business and how to be a great coach based on who you are.
Whoever the hell you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So I just think it's really important to, invest in yourself and understand that just because you're currently a coach doesn't mean that you can't be coached.
Right. And so, it's funny because I look back at that kid in a lot of ways who was like too afraid to invest in himself and like didn't want to. And now, so right now, literally as we speak, I have an endurance coach. I have a public speaking coach. I have what other coaches do I have? I think those are the two I have.
Girlfriend that's a coach.
Girlfriend that's a coach. Okay, so that's it. So the two areas that I hit 90-day marks, and I was like, and I went even too long on the endurance thing, but I was like, not really getting where I want to get. So I hired a coach. But now understanding this, it's like, there's no amount that I won't pay, to be honest, because I realize after being on this end of it, I'm like, oh, if I can invest in my own ability to create what it is I want in this life, then that actually opens the doors to a limitless potential. But before that, if it's just you only know what you know, and so it's really hard to mine all of the things that you have inside of you and put them in the right place.
Yeah, I think that's you saying that just makes me think about, so when I graduated undergrad, I went and moved across the country to Austin, Texas, and I was a personal trainer. I turned into a master trainer after 2 years being there. I was making almost $60,000 as a new grad, so I was like, oh, great, cool. And one of my fellow coworkers, he was like, hey, I'm going to go leave, and I'm going to start my own business. I want you to be a coach with me. And I didn't have enough faith in myself. I needed the substructure of a bigger corporation.
Because you were at 24-hour.
Yeah, because I didn't feel safe enough, and I just couldn't believe in myself enough to go out and be a coach on my own. And it's just so funny that after all of this time has gone by, here I am owning my own business, just relying strictly on myself.
Took you this long to get there in a lot of ways,
And honestly, I would not be here if it wasn't for coaches who told me that I could do this.
Totally.
Because in my mind at that time, I just didn't think it was possible.
To just go all in on yourself.
I was like, the metric, the success, it was all there right in my face. Like, but I needed a coach to be a mirror and say, like, no, you're a fucking rock star. Like, go out and heal the world because that's what you're put on this earth to do. Yeah,
totally.
So.
And standing in that truth is super difficult for people.
Oh my God, it's the hardest thing that you'll probably ever go through as a coach, entrepreneur, business owner, whatever.
Totally. Which is why I kicked this episode off talking about the fact that it's like taken me about 10 months, gone all in on my business and developed it to a place where I'm actually like pretty comfortable financially, pretty comfortable with the products that I offer. But what's most important is I actually just feel free. Like I feel free to like to help people in the way that I feel like I want to help people. Like I don't think there's a model that I'm beholden to, and that's the beauty of the online model. It's like once you do figure it out, once you figure out how to organize your thoughts, because the reality is that like it's your subjectivity that's going to make you a great coach. It's the things that you've gone through, the things that you've struggled with that are going to make you a great coach, which is a great question, which is a question that I have for you, and it's one that I've pondered quite a bit, which is, do you think that great athletes or great performers at whatever they're coaching make great coaches?
It depends. It depends if they take the call. I feel like some people just live small because they don't have that vision of expand. Like, I don't know.
What they could do?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
And because I was coached, and I was telling you, my high school basketball coach, she would always be like super hard on me, and I was like, oh my God, why are you so hard on me? But it was only, like, looking back, it's only because she saw like greatness and this great potential in me. And back then I was like,
right.
Why are you yelling at me?
Right.
But, like, I don't know, I lived small for so long, and it took me so many years to actually answer the call to greatness. And I think it was just some coach along the journey. It could be you, actually. But
in the Clarity Academy, you mean?
Yeah. I think that it just depends if you decide to take the call and live in your truth and live in your greatness. I think that, and it's, like you said, it's the hardest decision that you could ever make, but it also is the most rewarding and fulfilling decision that you could ever make.
Yeah. I think in my perspective, it's something I've been talking about for a while in my content, or I've mentioned a few times, but it's like sometimes we feel like we've fucked up a bunch in this life, and we feel like we're kind of broken, and we're like, man, I don't, it feels like you're looking at your life and it all feels busted up. And it's like, this is one of the ways that you can put pieces together, and really, if you help heal people in the way that you've been hurt or the way that you've fallen down or failed, like if you impact the world in that way, it's got a level of intrinsic meaning that I can't get across, and I can't articulate it properly because it's so incredible to be able to do that. And so the reason I'm saying that is because the way that I kind of think about this question is, great athletes, great performers, they could be good coaches, but it's definitely not a prereq. Because a lot of people that are listening to this probably that are like, yeah, but I'm broken, and I don't know if I'm a good coach, or like, I couldn't do that. It's like, no, you could. Now, you do have to be able to, you have to figure it out for yourself. You have to get a coach. You do have to do the work yourself. But all the places you've stumbled are the reasons that you could be a really, really good coach in this world for people.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, don't shame the parts of you that broke you open, because the world needs to have you open. So all of those parts that, make you feel broken and make you feel shamed are there because you're supposed to spread that to the world and heal the world. And whatever you do, whether it be performance, whether it be personal development, whether it be strength and conditioning, whether it be like your personal healing journey, whatever it may be, I just think that if you get past the self-worth and the shame, I think there's a lot of greatness beyond that. And I think a coach is a perfect mirror to show you that, like, you can see past the shame and see past the self-worth and actually show you a true mirror of who you are. So
yeah, totally. One of the things that has been great for me is, or was just a really great opportunity, is when I was in the military, when I was a BUDS instructor, I was sort of the lead instructor for the phase that I was overseeing, and so I would get to be in on some like decently high level conversations about how best to coach these people and develop them, right? And of course, we're looking at like the elite of the elite in this case. When less than 1% of the world's population is in the military, less than 1% of that 1% makes it through a special forces program. So you're really dealing with a really small group of elite performers in a lot of ways. And we would have these conversations about, when we're putting them through this program, are we making special forces operators, or are we finding them? And my argument was somewhat that we were finding them in a lot of ways, because I always felt like there was nobody that could really, like, I was going to be this. Like, there was nothing that was going to stop me from being this. But I think it's actually a combination after being there for 4 years, having really high-level coaching conversations. There's a guy that wrote a book called The Talent Code. I can't remember the author's name, but he came and lectured, and we got to have a really cool conversation with him, because we were trying to figure out how many opportunities should we give people to pick up the material that we're coaching them, especially once they've been selected, and we're like, actually, now we're really just coaching you on how to be a good operator, how to shoot, move, and communicate at a really basic level. Do we give them 2 chances to pass the test? Because when I went through, it was, you got 1 opportunity, and then basically after that, you basically got 3 opportunities. You'd get a roll, but if you got rolled for more than one thing to the next class behind you, then you'd get kicked out. And then they started opening it up, and a bunch of people that had already been through were kind of pissed because when I went through, it was like, well, we only got one, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, one of the points that they brought, which I had to really step back and think about is, okay, but the guy that takes, what they're finding is the guy that gets it on the first try isn't nearly as good as the guy that gets it on the fifth try. Because the guy that gets it on the fifth try has five more times practice. Yeah. And so you have to you have to leave space for that in some way. And to bring that full circle, one of the things that I've really started to realize is the people that have the biggest struggle with this stuff, they could become the best coaches. And it's actually, I mean, you have such a myopic view of the problem that when other people are dealing with problems, you're so good at talking about what it took to get you there in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people look at what they've done thus far, say they've tried a coaching journey or whatever, and they deem it as a failure.
As a client or as a coach?
As a coach.
Okay.
And they try to go out and coach at a, say, 24-hour fitness or something.
Yeah.
And they coach there for a month, and they're not satisfied. They thought that they were going to make more money than what they anticipated. And so they quit, and then they look at that as a failure. I think that oftentimes when we look at failure as an end-all be-all, that can totally end something, but maybe we just weren't working in our unique genius. So that's something in the course that we're going to talk about is like developing your personal niche. So like, who is your target? Like, what are you really good at? So for me, when I would work in PT clinics, I feel like young female girls, I could just literally give them anything in the whole entire world, and they would just be the most empowered humans when they got to work with me. But if I worked with 65-year-old males, they weren't as empowered per se. Totally. So it's finding that unique genius, that personal niche, and like really honing in on that. And it did take me a couple failures, in quotation marks, with some older gentlemen to understand that that's not my target audience.
Right, and it doesn't need to be.
Right. And also, I think that just looking at your failures as learning lessons and...
honestly, in my opinion, it's the only appropriate way to look at failure.
Yeah,
There's no other way that's going to leave you with a life that's worth a damn.
So, here's a story. When I was in physical therapy school, we had practicals where we had to basically like mock simulations of basically an examination of a patient. And I went into this ortho practical, and I was like, I'm going to just do everything by the book, exactly by the book, exactly how they said. And I went in, forgot everything, failed the practical. It was terrible. It was awful. And so I met with my professor, and he took me in, and we talked through it. And he's like, no, seriously, like, how would you approach this patient? And I just went through how I would personally actually do it as opposed to going by the book. And he was like, see, you're a damn good PT. I know you're going to be a good PT. Don't try to do things by the book. Like, do it how you're good at doing it. Explain it how you're supposed to explain it, you know?
Yeah, don't box yourself in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do that when they fail. They look at it and they're like, well, that's over. And it's like, no, all you need is a different perspective, you know?
Right.
So.
You know what, I couldn't agree more, because I was, I'm just thinking back to my days, you know, in the military. It's like we would do these student critiques where they would get a chance to critique all the instructors, and they would rank us like 1 through 20 or however many instructors there were. But I was consistently number 1, like by a long slot. And
I'm the failure. You're the number 1.
It sounds super cocky, but the reason that I was is because I literally like threw the playbook out when I was dealing with them. I mean, like, there were...
That's what you have to do.
I would look at, okay, what can I get away with? What are the limits? What are the left and right limits here? Like, what's the constraints on me? Like, what's going to put me in jail? What's not okay to do? What's right? And then outside of that, I would be like, okay, well, I know how to get results. Like, I know how to talk to humans, right? And so I'm going to... I was a student, too. I remember how to be talked to. I remember the coaches I liked. I remember the ones I didn't like. So you're going to get the human version of me every time. Now, some people didn't like it because I was, like, pretty rough around the edges at the time. Like, I was very much in my ego, and I was very much, driven by metrics that I no longer care about that much anymore. But for that environment and that time, it really worked. But the thing that separated me is that they're really, like, other than I would keep the rules, and outside of that, it was like, I'm going to tell you the real shit. Like, I'm going to tell you what's worked for me. I'm going to tell you exactly what you're getting yourself into right now. I'm going to tell you exactly how it's going to go for you. And I'm going to tell it to you completely unfiltered. And every once in a while, I'd get in a little bit of trouble. But for the most part, it separated me apart as a coach. And it's like, it was perfect. There's no reason to be something you're not in this life, because it doesn't work ever.
Right.
Not as a coach, not as anything.
Yeah, and just hearing you say that makes it so funny, because it's like, I don't think that you should be in a box at all, but like your box is going to look far different from my box.
Right. Totally.
The way you coach is way different than the way I coach, but that's okay, because
it's going to work for different people.
We're all trying to heal the world, fix the world, and make better humans and coach better people to be better. So I think you should keep that in mind too. Just because, you think you should be one way doesn't mean you have to be like Rick Alexander or Danielle McGinnis.
Totally. Like, what do you know works? Like, what's worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? Get rid of that shit. Don't use it. You know what I mean? Like, stop pushing a solution that's not working. If it's not a square, stop pushing it in the square hole. Right. Or, the circle hole, round hole. I'm done. Okay. All right. So one thing I do want to talk about is that I really think made me a decent coach, and it's been the best gift I could have ever imagined, and it's something I never would have realized. So one, when you teach something, you understand it better. You just do. You have to. It forces you to, because you have to break it down at a level that other people understand it. And if they're not understanding it, that's your problem, not theirs, right? As a coach, that's the deal. You can't be like, well, they don't get me. And that's a lot of coaches you see. Like, well, they don't get it. And it's like, right. Your job is to make them get it. And so if they're not getting it, that's on you. So there's that byproduct. And the other part of it, though, is there's an inherent responsibility. Like, for me at least, like, if I try to coach somebody and I don't live that life myself, like, I don't live the things that I'm saying, if I'm not doing, so for the Clarity Academy, like, if I'm not facing these shadows and stuff myself, then I just feel like shit. But two, I feel like I can't coach it well at all. Yeah. And so it's like, it's also a calling in a lot of ways to like really step up to a higher way of living, because as a coach, like, you are holding people to a standard, and if you don't hold them to if you don't have that standard yourself, the people see right through it.
Yeah, I think that, obviously with my last business I built, like, our slogan was live it, breathe it, be it, and I made that up because literally I felt like every part of my soul I had to live what I was preaching. And I think that so many people, now that you see the online space getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I think that everybody sees different people succeeding and they're like, oh, I'm going to succeed like them. But it's like, no, to succeed like them, you have to live what they live and do what they do. Do you want to do that? Probably not.
Right.
And for me, I think a lot of people look at me and they're like, oh, she's the girl that posts every morning, and super early in the morning. It's like, yeah, because I get up at 4:15 in the morning and I live my message. That's what I do.
Yeah, you do. That shit's real.
Yeah, so I think that whatever, message you're trying to preach, I think a lot now my message is shifting to more a holistic healing approach. And for me, I've found that, I had to go through the holistic healing, like the emotional roller coaster, the deep, dark corners of my emotional childhood healing and all of that stuff, because how in the world could I teach people those like deep painful like getting through those painful experiences if I didn't do it myself?
Totally.
So I think that when you are a coach, you should definitely embody your work, because something feels very disconnected if you're not embodying your work. And I think you should listen to that too. But as a client, if you're working with a coach, I feel like that is like a prerequisite before you choose a coach. Do they live their message? Do they embody their brand? Are they who they say they are? Because that's going to say everything about the results that you get from the program.
100%. I remember when I was 19 going through selection in the military, and I remember, like, you've run and you swim miles and miles every day, but I remember the instructors that didn't do it. Like, I remember the ones that would tell us to do it and they wouldn't do it themselves ever. You don't expect them to like go through the whole thing with yourself, so it's a huge kick in the balls. But I would watch the ones that would like never do it, and I would just zero respect. Like, and I'm 19 and they're like proven, credibility is gone completely. And I wasn't sorry for that. I was like, I don't care. Get out of my, like, I'll listen to you so I don't get in trouble, but like, just so you know, like, your word means nothing to me.
Well, I think that's a level after you establish rapport with someone can really tell if you live in integrity with your message. And I think that that's going to build that intrinsic trust within whatever you're trying to coach.
Right, totally. And and then when I came back as an instructor, I had, of course, it's all running and swimming, but I was competing in strongman at the time.
Yeah.
And I was a lightweight strongman, which was 235 pounds at 5'10". And I was like, I'm 194 right now. And I was like, that's what got me back into endurance is I got there and I was like, dude, I cannot, doesn't matter if I have a 600 pound deadlift. I have to be the example. Like, I can't preach what I'm not doing. And so I just started running and swimming constantly with all the students. And like, there was a rough year where I was like 230 pounds, like running on the beach. But I'm like, this is what's going to happen. Like, I cannot not do this. But the other thing that happens is you develop if you can develop a level of self-awareness as you're stepping into the responsibility of being a really good coach and living your truth, living your message, that's going to make you a better coach too, because you're submitting yourself to the adversity that your clients are going through. And so I can't even tell you, like, for me, just forcing myself to do, like, I do the Clarity Academy with every course that goes through. I make sure I do the journaling assignments, the whole deal. I even watch the lectures that I did because there's some things I might forget. But one thing I'm realizing in doing that, we've run through it 3 times now, is that I'm constantly learning things that's going to make, that then I bring to the coaching calls. And I'm like, hey, you guys, I just want to open the call by talking about this. Here's what's happened to me, and here's what I'm thinking. And people are like, damn, I didn't think of that. And it's like, yeah, that's the joy of like being able to step into the responsibility of it. It's like, it's rough to step into that, but at the same time, it's going to make you such a better coach.
I agree with that fully, for sure.
Totally. I want to talk a little bit about some of the other parts of coaching. So you get into coaching to, let's say you want to be a strength and conditioning coach or whatever it is. You get into it because you have an inherent love for strength and conditioning. Maybe it's changed your life in some way, and you should build your philosophy around what it's done for you in a lot of ways. But then you also end up with a whole other bunch of stuff. Like, you end up with admin work. You end up running a website. Like, I'm the most tech illiterate human ever to run an online business, right? And so I want to talk about that journey a little bit. Like, what's that been like for you? I know we've talked a lot about it, but just for the listeners' sake.
Well, for me, luckily, I'm kind of tech illiterate, but not really, because I'm also really good at figuring things out. Google is a great tool to figure things out, and there's no excuse why you can't figure out something via YouTube. It's just going to take you longer. But I think starting a business from the ground, it's important that you kind of learn the basics and the foundational tools so that you know. But as your business starts to grow, and when you get to a level that you want to start to scale your business, you need to push those tasks out to people who are better suited for those, so you can stay within your actual coaching vision. Yeah,
use your time for you, like where you're best.
Yeah, but for me, I think that just finding software that works with my, skills, my online skills, is what has helped me. I mean, you said that you use Shopify for your website, and you're like, oh, it's great. But I built a whole website with my other business on Wix, so I knew everything on Wix. I knew basically everything except how to make automated payments.
Right.
But, I was able to basically rebuild a whole new brand, a whole new website from Wix, from scratch, without sending it out to help. And I found out how to use recurring payments just by figuring it out.
Right.
So I think that, it's going to take some work and some effort, but when you get to the point, you should push those tasks out to people.
Right. I had a pretty big team on a company that I owned, and then when I went on my own to start really building the coaching business, I realized, like, damn, I don't have access to these people anymore, and they had to help build my websites and all of this stuff. And so, what I did is I took this principle in business called the MVP, which is the minimal viable product, and it's even in Burn Your Couch, I call it what I call a low risk probe. It's like, what is the way that you can enter this market? You can figure it out, whatever it is you want to do in the world, with a minimal viable investment, both time, resources, just to just to help develop, like, so for the Clarity Academy, that's the approach that I took. And like with your class, I literally used YouTube, which was free, Google Docs. It wasn't the most professional, and now I've like really gone through lengths, and now this next Clarity Academy is getting like a full professional dashboard, branded, the whole deal. But like that's a full year, and I built the business into what it is now. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because I don't want that to be a barrier to entry for people, because it doesn't have to be. I'm telling you, if I can figure it out, anyone can. And there are so many ways to work with people. Like I said, I used YouTube, I used Zoom, I used Google Docs. Everything I used was...
You used me for Canva the other day?
I did. Yeah. But I mean...
figure it out.
People get amazed. Like, my entire business costs $290 a year to run. And I've changed it now. And that's not actually, that's not with my website, but that's $30 a month, and then $290 a year in like services that I've used to build a 6-figure business. And like, again, like, you don't want to stay there, of course, but like, also, I didn't know, like, are people going to love this work like I loved it? The Clarity Academy work changed my life, but like, I'm an N of one. I got to make sure that it works for other people, that I can like get it out there.
It gives you room to pivot too when you don't make huge investments on the, like, soon as you start.
Yeah, totally.
So if you invest in this business website, but it doesn't work for the way that you handle tasks, and you already invested, you paid the annual fee of like $600 for your website,
right,
you're pretty much screwed.
right. Yeah, like go minimum, go free. Like, every tech company now uses a freemium model, which is basically they're going to let you get access to some of it, and then you're going to have to pay for more. Mm-hmm. But see what you can do for free. See what you can do. Like, there's so many services out there. And if you're a good enough coach who will get above the noise, I promise you, I'm telling you, like.
And I think that from at least a branding perspective, I think that really just focusing on your message is really what you should focus on when you're starting the business. Like, getting really clear with like your mission, vision, your values, and your purpose, and all of that other stuff will fall into place. Because you said I started a business in PT school. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Right. I had no idea. I'd never started a business before, but you figure it out. But the main thing was the mission and what I was put on this earth to do, and it was that mission.
Yeah.
And that got you through the times that you didn't have the money to invest in things, and you didn't have the knowledge of those complicated tasks.
Yeah.
So.
And that, and in the course, the Art of Coaching course that we're releasing on Friday, like, that's one of the things we talk about right out of the gate, is developing a vision and a mission. Because if your vision and mission is correct, it will pull you through the bullshit, for sure. But you got to stay focused on it too. It's like, what am I creating? As a lot of people, they think their job as a visionary is to make people believe in them. It's not the job of a visionary. Your job is to create something that they can't help but believe in. Your job is...
authentic leadership.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Which you get in the course. Perfect. All right. So, okay, the last question I want to ask you is just kind of open-ended. Do you think, is there anything that you've learned in your coaching journey or along the way that you just think people should know?
I mean, it's going to sound cliche, but like, you never stop learning. Whether it's about whatever you're coaching about, if you stay stagnant, your business is going to stay stagnant.
Yes.
If your knowledge stays stagnant, your clients are going to suffer.
Yep.
So if you just always have to continually educate yourself. Like, you and I are going to Sedona in a couple weeks to do some basically continuing education for our courses and what we want to do.
Right.
And then I'm going to Vancouver for another conference, because I want to be the best version of myself for my clients, and that's going to take me investing in myself, and that's going to take me growing and learning. So.
Right. That's great. Yeah, and I when I look back at businesses that have not done as well, I realized that I'd failed to evolve. Even if I started with a good product, and like I would get a bunch of clients at first, and then so this is a whole other topic, so I don't want to go into it fully, but to coach in something that you're intrinsically passionate about. I remember Aaron Stracker, who I've had on the show before. He launched a coaching business, and we actually had him on the show as he was launching it. And one of the things that was crazy to him is he has a nutrition company. He's a freak about nutrition. He loves it. He's always weighed and measured his food. He geeks out about it, the whole deal. But he takes for granted how much knowledge he has because he's so passionate about it. So he'll go talk to someone else, and he thinks other people know this stuff, and they don't, which is what made him realize, like, oh shit, I can coach people on this. if you stay in the stuff that you're passionate about and you don't try to follow trends, that's the real problem. It's like, oh, I think I can make money doing this. It's like, that's when I think you get out of your swim lane and you kind of screw yourself, because you're not going to have the intrinsic motivation to keep evolving in what you're doing. And people are going to pick up on that in your business. The stagnation will happen. But if you can continue evolving, and I think the way you continue evolving is just by staying in the stuff that you're interested in, right? Like I redo the Clarity Academy in 10 months is evolved so much based on what the people have gone through, but it's because I'm so passionate about this work that I'm never going to stop doing the work to evolve the course, to keep making it better. And that's part of my vision as a coach. Like, I have so much pride in, if you invest in yourself with me, because I know how hard it is for people to invest in themselves. It's fucking difficult. And especially like the Clarity Academy is $1,000, $1,500 if you want like good, the one-on-one coaching part. And so it's like, it's not a cheap investment, and I get that. So my thing is like, look, if you get it, I'm going to give you lifetime access to this material, which what that really means is you get lifetime access to me continuously evolving myself through the years. Yeah. And I'm going to be leaps and bounds ahead of where I started, because this is my passion project. And so I think to your point, that what I realized in those first businesses is like, we would get clients and it would do okay, but I couldn't seem to like grow the business in a lot of ways after a certain point. And the reason being is because I stopped evolving myself. I stopped evolving my knowledge base around the business, and that's why now, even though the Clarity Academy is built, every single time I run it, I rebuild some of the courses, some of the modules, because I'm like, this course will evolve forever because people evolve forever. And evolution does not go backwards. And so don't you think you can like trust like, oh, I know a couple of things. Seems like people are paying a lot of money for this. And I think that's what's giving coaching a shitty
I think as you say that too. So, I mean, we've been talking about coaching and, whether that's personal development or healing or whatever, but it just made me think of when I was in clinic as a PT student. I was shit on so hard by some PTs in the clinic that refused to look at new models in the way that I approached healing and physical therapy. They thought it was just radical, basically. But the thing was, I was getting to a level with patients that they couldn't get access to because they were so stuck in their old ways of old physical therapy models. And it's like, no matter what your education is, no matter how much experience you have, you can always continue to evolve. And whether you're not evolving knowledge, whatever, if they choose not to do that, that's fine. But you should always be evolving your person. So,
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think whatever, I think you can just grow and learn.
Yeah. But the thing is, that growing and that learning, that's what's going to set you apart.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot of people that are in this space for not the right reasons. Like, it seems like it's like a money grab right now for people. Oh, I could live anywhere, I could do it. It's like, you're tech savvy, so you'll just set up some shit and sell some templates, and people,
or ego.
Her ego, and people just don't get the results. And so I would just say, like, hold on to whatever it is that you think makes you different. I think that's the best thing you could possibly do as a coach. I think we spend our whole lives trying to fit in, and then we realize at some point in our life, like, the thing that separates us is the thing that separates us, and that's the thing that we can really double down on to have success in this life.
Do you want me to read the quote that I have on my wall?
Sure, hit it.
You have nothing to lose by being you and going all in on yourself.
Yeah. Well, and that's easier said than done, for sure.
It is. But
because it's simple, but, like, there's a level of commitment to yourself and to the universe there that's, like, not always easy to step up in.
It's very difficult. But that's why we have a program for it.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so, all right, so we're going to launch this course on Friday. The way it works is it does not launch in cohorts like the Clarity Academy does. So whenever you sign up, you'll get the first module, and then it's going to get dripped out. It's one per week for 6 weeks, plus we have some bonus content in there. There's lectures, there's podcasts, there is worksheets to help just, it's basically like, it's not what, it's like we struggled in how to name this thing, because it was like, are we telling people how to start a business? A little bit, but really we're telling people how to develop themselves as a coach. Like, how do you develop your philosophy? How do you take the information that you already have and then deliver it to people in a way that changes their lives? Because that's That's, I think, what the market's missing right now. That's what people are missing. It's like there's a million how to start a business books and articles and whatever the fuck you want to do in that space, but to really like develop yourself heart first, that's a different conversation, and that's why we developed our course, The Art of Coaching, which will be available on Friday. So what is your Instagram?
At dbird20.
I'll be honest, there's not a listener on here that doesn't know your Instagram, but you're at dbird20 and I'm at @RickAlexander_. We'll link up the course in both of our profiles. I'll have it in there for about a week. I do have the Clarity Academy launching again in a week, so I'll probably change that. But it'll also be on both of our websites, and your website is?
www.iamalphafem.com.
Cool. And I'm rickalexander.com. And so it's either go to our Instagram. You could also shoot us a DM and we'll just send you a link for it if you're interested. This is going to be kind of work through it at your own pace, 6 weeks. Just really figure out what you think about the world and how you can take that information and change people's lives with it. Danielle, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish this.
Hit it.
So many people have been asking us, when are we gonna do things to change the world? And we have been like linking up for 3 months, figuring out how we're gonna change the world. And this is the start, so.
This is the start.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Khalifa man. I used to think there was no making it out. But if you work hard for it, then it comes to you. All it takes is time and patience. Just gotta set your goals and you'll make it there. Never let them tell you that you can't. Try sticking to the plan. Don't let anything get in your way. The best part about it's the process. And if one person get it, we all can get some. Never gonna leave you out. Never gonna let you down. We started, so we gon' finish. I'll be there anytime you call. If I got it, it's yours. Something worth fighting for. I know they wanna see me stop, but I don't ever give them what they want. No, I ain't never giving up. No, I ain't never giving up. No, I ain't never giving up. No. Yeah. Every day that I find the strength to carry this weight. That I will be okay, and I know I'll see the day when I find my own way, where the skies have no gray. So go and let the sun shine on me. I pray every day that I'll find the strength to carry this weight. That I will be okay, and I know that I'll see the day when I find my own way. Where the skies have no gray, so go and let the sun shine on me. So baby, let the sun shine on me, girl. Come on, let me. When I find my own way. So baby, let the sun shine on me, girl. Come on, let me. Wake up, bake up, gotta get my cake and make sure my family's straight. Work hard for it every day, won't never let it slip away. Got a grip on it, knock that chip right off of your shoulder, throw a zip on it, get an old school and throw some switches on it. Looking older when we pose for our pictures, I suppose that's what we thought it felt like when we get here. Ain't no opportunities missing, took advantage now instead of corner offices. We putting records out and our dogs is getting rich. Tell the judge, keep them sentences, I'm free as 0 cents. Our bread long 0. I could ride through my city with no fear. Was broke, switch gears and bossed up. Never look back, now we on track. And if you work hard, you feel exactly how I do. Every day's a chance to be great. Yeah.